Sandy Cortez getting called out, breaking her silence on those suburban upbringings. You see, because she wants you to think she's just a simple girl from the Bronx, not even Queens, right? She does represent Queens and part of the Bronx, and she's a Bronx girl. The reason this came about, or came to a head, I should say, is because Donald Trump called her out most recently. Remember in this really epic post, I was like, wow, this may be one of his best. I mean, he just let her have it. This is when he called her stupid AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, one of the, quote, dumbest people in Congress, he wrote, is now calling for my impeachment. This was after the successful strike on Iran. Quote, despite the fact that the crooked and corrupt Democrats have already done that twice before. The reason for her, quote, rantings is all the victories that the USA has had under the Trump administration. The Democrats aren't used to winning, he writes, and she can't stand the concept of our country being successful again. When we examine her test scores, we will find out that she is not qualified for office. And then goes on to say, although she's probably smarter than that Jasmine Crockett. Yeah, well, you know, it's a low bar. That's not hard to do. So she decided she was going to fire off about this one. And she decided to write something. Oh, let's see if we can find the first little thing that she wrote. Do I have it here? I think I do. Oh, yeah, here we go. Mr. President, don't take your anger out on me. I'm just a silly girl. Take it out on whoever convinced you to betray the American people and our Constitution by illegally bombing Iran and dragging us into war. Now, of course, there's plenty of precedent for what he did. And you just look at the markets, you look at oil prices, and what are you going to find? Everybody is celebrating what went down there. So, you know, she's the cranky one who's off in the corner by herself, going on and on and on, saying, now, after he wrote that, also, quote, I'm a Bronx girl. You should know that we eat Queens boys for breakfast, respectfully. So, you know, the internet had a little bit of fun with that because it turns out she's not really a Bronx girl. You know, she's not growing up in the projects in the Bronx. Far from it. Apparently, she grew up in Westchester. So, you know, Westchester, Tony Westchester County, not the Bronx. And she grew up in a nice middle-class house in, I guess, the Yonkers community. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the New York Post writes, finally spoke out about her suburban high school yearbook photo. We're going to get to that in a second, but won't admit that she grew up in the suburbs. Oh, wow. Okay, so what'd you get against the suburbs, by the way? I guess, you know, it doesn't really fly when you're running in Bronx and the Queens. You got to seem like you're a man or a woman of the people. So here is her high school yearbook, guys. So she was Sandy back then, Sandy Cortez. And she graduated from Yorktown High School in 2007. It's a suburban town in Yorktown Heights in Westchester County. And her competitor there is an assemblyman named Matt Slater is calling her out saying, you know, this is just embarrassing. She's embarrassing herself for doing everything possible to avoid saying that she grew up in the suburbs instead of the Bronx. Okay, so this is, she got to the point where she actually decided she was going to have to say something. Take a look. This is her house. This is her house that she grew up in. Nice middle-class existence. I mean, this is not the projects in the Bronx, okay? This is not exactly the inner city. This is Yorktown Heights. And, you know, there's a big difference between growing up in the suburbs. Let's just say, okay, in fairness, like a big difference in terms of the school, et cetera, and crime levels than growing up in the inner city. But she wants us all, for some reason, to think that she grew up in the inner city. I guess it's really important to her to rewrite her story. So, you know, people are trading this one online, and they're making it really clear that she is not quite what she says she is, So she's all upset and offended, as only Sandy could possibly be, right? Sandy's all upset and offended. And so now she's out on Twitter and she's firing back. And I got to show you this, guys, because it's really sort of, you know, it's comical, but it's not, because this woman is a member of Congress and this woman is being talked about as a potential contender potential contender for none other than the President of the United States. In all seriousness, I know we think that that's really weird, but that's actually where she could be heading. So she wrote after somebody on Twitter pointed all this out. She fired back with, here we go. I am proud of how I grew up and talk about it all the time. My mom's cleaned houses and I helped. We cleaned tutors' homes in exchange for SAT prep. Growing up between the Bronx and Yorktown deeply shaped my views of inequality, and it's a big reason I believe the things I do today. So again, she's really stuck on the Bronx. Okay. Yorktown's different than the Bronx, but she's really stuck on that because apparently she lived there until she was 5 years old. So, that makes her a Bronx girl. She was responding to this Twitter account that's kind of funny. I'm going to share this one with you guys because you should see him. His name is Paul something, and he goes by Bubble Bath Girl. He was the one that initially wrote this, and so she responded to him, and he responded again, saying you're a pathological liar and a disgrace to America. You have illegals working on your congressional staff. You've repeatedly used federal dollars for personal expenses. I do believe that's the dance lessons. Remember we talked about that? The dance lessons. You're going to jail, AOC. You'd better hire a good lawyer. Make sure you pay for the lawyer yourself. Okay, well, she probably shouldn't have fired back to this particular Twitter account because this Twitter account really, really, really hates her. But it's comical kind of to see the back and forth and the exchange. She went on. Okay, she's not done. She's not done. She's not done. So we got to get to her next response. She said about, the cleaning the houses for the SAT stuff. She wrote, I tell this story on the Fight the Oligarchy tour. When my dad died during the financial crisis, my mom almost got foreclosed on. Okay, the nice little house. Almost got foreclosed on, she said. And so this is a big part of what she says with the oligarchy whatever tour. GOP always thinks this is some kind of gotcha, but I ran my whole campaign for Congress with this motto. Your zip code shouldn't be determining your destiny. But again, it's Yorktown. It's not the Bronx. I mean, I hate to have to nitpick, but there is a difference. And when she goes on about how she tells the story on the oligarchy tour, for goodness sakes, give me a break. This is the oligarchy tour that she's doing with Bernie Sanders. They're going to fight the oligarchy in none other than their private pet. Make it up. I mean, this is socialism in a nutshell, right? So here they are getting out. Can you see them? They're getting out of their private plane here to fight the oligarchy. Sandy wants to make sure she has a private jet to fight the oligarchy. By the way, be careful. She's super touchy about the private jet. If you ask her about it, she's like, well, she's not touching it. How dare you? I need my private jet. I got to get around and fight the oligarchy, okay? So, she's out there fighting the oligarchy, trying to pretend she's someone she's not. I think everybody would have a whole lot more respect for her if she would just admit, okay, you know what? I was lucky enough to move to the suburbs when I was 5. But if I hadn't been able to get to the suburbs, maybe I wouldn't have had the same opportunities in life. And therefore, that's why we need to go and fight for these kids in the Bronx. But she just wants to lie and pretend she's something else because, that's her MO. That's her MO. And by the way, don't come after her or her peeps, right? Does that mean LaMonica is safe? Remember?
If anyone's breaking the law in this situation, it's not members of Congress, it's the Department of Homeland Security. It's people like Tom Homan and Secretary Kristi Noem. You lay a finger on them, we are going to have a problem.
Oh boy. Well, LaMonica might actually be facing 17 years in prison. I don't really see AOC quite rallying to her defense. Sandy, where are you when we need you? Cute high school picture, don't you think? From the high school yearbook, courtesy of the New York Post, who tracked that one down.